Welcome back, everybody. So, unbelievably, there are just a few months left in 2020. And if you're thinking about what does 2021 hold for me in terms of my employment, then our next guest has some questions that you need to ask. So, are you going to be asked to go back into the office in 2021? What does scheduling look like? What about safety concerns? That and so much more. We're so excited to welcome our negotiating expert to the show, Fotini Iconomopoulos. Great to have you with us.
Good morning. Great to be back.
Okay, so let's start with this scenario, Fotini. You're being called back to work, but you actually really want to continue working from home. What should you do in that scenario?
So, what I tell my clients is start talking about productivity now. In fact, this is advice that I was giving months ago because so many people I know were really excited to start working from home and working remotely. And I told them start building the case as quickly as you can that you have been so much more productive in this home office. Give as many examples as you can. So if you can talk about how many meetings you're knocking out now that you're not commuting, if you can talk about how many more emails that you're getting through or how much the team dynamics have improved, you're building a case slowly to make it harder for them to say no when the time comes, should you have to have that conversation about staying home indefinitely.
Speaking of which, how do you broach that specific topic? So, how do you actually say or perhaps propose to your boss, maybe this is something I do want to do indefinitely is work from home at all the time or maybe some of the time?
So, my advice for that is to ask questions to get them on the same page first. It's perceived as less abrasive and less aggressive when we ask questions. So, start asking them if they know about industry trends that are going on. Tech companies like Facebook and Google have been talking about keeping people at home until at least mid 2021. I've been hearing the same thing about consumer goods companies as well. Some are talking about doing it permanently. So, ask them questions about have you heard about what so and so is doing? That'll also help with some social proof of other testimonials of others doing it in the industry. You can also manage their expectations in the form of these questions to go, hey, did you realize how much more we're doing in this new virtual environment, or how much more we're accomplishing? Back to what I said about that productivity thing, get them on the same page. The other really great news is that in negotiation, one of the biggest pieces of advice I often give people is to suggest a trial, because once you do a trial, it's very hard to back out of that trial. So the great news is we've been doing an over 6 month trial already. Start asking them questions about how they think that's been going and how positive it is. So if you can get them on the same page for that, now you get them to acknowledge things in the form of them answering versus you telling them and waving a finger at them. Questions can be perceived as a much more collaborative way of having a fruitful conversation.
So, some jobs obviously can't be done from home forever. So, if you are being called back into the office, what are some questions that you should be asking when it comes to your personal safety?
Yeah, this is one that hits home for me because my mother went back to work a few months ago and I was arming her with all of these questions. We were super concerned about it. So I would start thinking about mapping out your day. What are all those potential moments where you could feel unsafe, whether it's on the commute, whether it's walking into a building, whether it's going into an elevator, if it's sitting down next to somebody, if it's interacting with customers. Start thinking about each of those moments and asking questions. What are we doing about masks? What are we doing about cleaning in the office? How are we greeting guests when they come in? All of those moments that you are concerned about, bring them to the forefront in that form of a question. Make them accountable to some of these things. Bring it to their attention to some of these things without going, if you don't have these things, I'm not coming to work. Again, it feels like more of a conversation, but you're raising attention to things that they might not even have considered.
Okay, so let's get real nitty gritty. What if you have a colleague that is not necessarily following all the safety rules?
Well, when it comes to controversy in the workplace, again, I'm going to go back to leaning on your questions. That's going to, again, instead of finger wagging at them and start yelling at them, that's not going to get you very far. It's only going to end up with both of you being reported to management or something like that. And what we're finding these days, people are quite polarized in some opinions about things. So come at this controversy in the form of questions. It'll make you seem a lot less combative. You won't be perceived as the bully. So start making them realize that you could be working together. Form your questions in the state of something collaborative, like how can we work on a solution that's going to make us both comfortable? It's obvious that we have different opinions, but I just want to make sure that this is a work environment where we both feel safe to come to work. What can we do to come up with a solution together?
This is great advice. Fotini, one of the biggest struggles that parents have is balancing their work schedules and their family schedules. So let's talk about how you maybe ask or broach the topic of more flexibility in your schedule to your bosses.
Yeah, this one is all about starting with your boss's perspective. So, how can you start with the employer's perspective in mind? Like, you know what you want out of this negotiation. You know you want to be safe, you know you want to be flexible, you want all of these things. But how can you think about it from their perspective? What is the benefit in it for them? Because there's going to be a benefit in it for the both of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to work for this employer and vice versa. So start with the why. Why should they care? What is it about your circumstances that are going to help them? Is it something like saying, I have a way where we can get through way more emails in a day or way more meetings in a day, or I can plow through many more projects. And they're going to go, oh, tell me more about that, Fotini. Well, it involves me working from 9:30 to 3 and then picking up my laptop again from 5 to 7 when my kids are busy having dinner or when something else is going on, because then I'm going to be uninterrupted. I'm going to have the ability to log more hours by just being able to spread those hours out a little bit more. So start with that why, that it's almost like a bullseye that I talk about with people all the time. And then you can work them through the how of how it's all going to work out. But you need to be thinking about it from their perspective first. You can also lean on those questions again and go, well, here's a couple of options for you. Would you prefer that I get through this many emails, or would you prefer that I get through that many emails? And again, it's starting with their perspective about the whole thing and working those questions into the equation. And those questions will help to guide the conversation in a way you want them to go, as opposed to providing them with options that you hadn't considered.
Okay, this last question is a toughie because financially times are tough, but we're all working a lot. We always feel like we need a raise. Can we still ask for a raise at the end of this year or anytime?
Absolutely. And that all starts with something I call the feel good folder. So before you even get into asking for a raise, I want everybody out there to create a feel good folder. What does that mean? It's a practice that I've been doing for I don't even know how long. I literally have a folder in my Outlook inbox. And every single time I get a compliment, every single time I've had a testimonial of sorts, anything that is a positive about me in the workplace, I put that in my feel good folder. So on days when you're feeling really down or not sure about your value, that's a nice little ego boost for you. But more importantly, it is now a log of all of the really great things that you've been doing. And now you can use that log in your conversations with people. Because if you're getting an email from somebody else that's complimenting you, that's not your opinion anymore. That is testimonial from others. And that makes you look even more credible. But in terms of timing too, there's something that everybody needs to recognize. So many people are getting ready for year-end evaluations that happen usually in December. And that's the moment when you're told, here's your next promotion, or here's your salary increase or lack of. And so what does that mean for you? It means that a month earlier, a bunch of executives sat in a room and went, here's the budget we have to allocate. Who should we allocate it to? And that's when they all started talking about you and your peers and deciding who gets what. That means you need to be in their ear way before that. So you need to look at that feel good folder and go, what meetings can I set up with people? How do I make them aware of some of the really great stuff I've been working on, so that I am putting myself into a position where they want to be rewarding me over somebody else, so that they are aware of all the great things that I've been doing, all of the increased productivity during COVID, all the great accolades I've been getting from all of my peer group. So you can definitely do it, but I want you to set yourself up for success first before you do that.
Fotini, thank you so much for these great tips and joining us today.
My pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.